So tonight I'll read the earlier chapters of Mindfulness, The Path to the Deathless by Luang Sumedho that I didn't last time. I read a bit more about, we talked about relaxing and calming the mind first, but with his teaching, it's all kind of both calming for insight, and so it's not ever just samatha or vipassana with him. It's always the whole thing, but this is more prep. So this chapter is called Investigation. What is meditation? The word meditation is a much used word these days, covering a wide range of practices. In Buddhism, it designates two kinds of meditation. One is called samatha, the other vipassana. Samatha meditation is one of concentrating the mind on an object, rather than letting it wander off to other things. One chooses an object, such as the sensation of breathing, and puts full attention on the sensations of the inhalation and exhalation. Eventually, through this practice, you begin to experience a calm mind, and you become tranquil because you are cutting off all other impingements that come through the senses. The objects that you use for tranquility are tranquilizing, needless to say. If you want to have an excited mind, then go to something that is exciting. Don't go to a Buddhist monastery. Go to a disco. Excitement is easy to concentrate on, isn't it? It's so strong a vibration that it just pulls you right into it. You go to the cinema, and if it's really an exciting film, you become enthralled by it. You don't have to exert any effort to watch something that is very exciting or romantic or adventurous. But if you are not used to it, watching a tranquilizing object can be terribly boring. What is more boring than watching your breath if you are used to more exciting things? So for this kind of ability, you have to arouse effort from your mind, because the breath is not interesting, not romantic, not adventurous or scintillating. It is just as it is. So you have to arouse effort because you're not getting stimulated from the outside. In this meditation, you are not trying to create any image, but just to concentrate on the ordinary feeling of your body as it is right now, to sustain and hold your attention on your breathing. When you do that, the breath becomes more and more refined, and you calm down. I know people who have prescribed samatha meditation for high blood pressure because it calms the heart. So this is a tranquility practice. You can choose different objects to concentrate on, training yourself to sustain your attention till you absorb or become one with the object. You actually feel a sense of oneness with the object that you have been concentrating on, and this is what we call absorption. The other practice is vipassana. With insight meditation, you are opening the mind up to everything. You are not choosing any particular object to concentrate on or absorb into, but watching in order to understand the way things are. Now, what we can see about the way things are is that all sensory experience is impermanent. Everything you see, hear, smell, taste, touch, all mental conditions, your feelings, memories, and thoughts, are changing conditions of the mind, which arise and pass away. In Vipassana, we take this characteristic of impermanence, or change, as a way of looking at all sensory experience that we can observe while sitting here. This is not just a philosophical attitude or a belief in a particular Buddhist theory. Impermanence is to be insightfully known by opening the mind to watch and being aware of the way things are. It's not a matter of analyzing things by assuming that things should be a certain way, and when they aren't, then trying to figure out why things are not the way we think they should be. With insight practice, we are not trying to analyze ourselves or even trying to change anything to fit our desires. In this practice, we just patiently observe that whatever arises passes away, whether it is mental or physical. So this includes the sense organs themselves, the object of the senses, and the consciousness that arises with their contact. There are also mental conditions of liking and disliking what we see, smell, taste, feel, or touch, the names we give them, and the ideas, words, and concepts we create around sensory experience. Much of our life is based on wrong assumptions made through not understanding and not really investigating the way anything is. So life for one who isn't awake and aware tends to become depressing or bewildering, especially when disappointments or tragedies occur. Then one becomes overwhelmed because one has not observed the way things are. In Buddhist terms, we use the word Dhamma or Dharma, which means the way it is, the natural laws. When we observe and practice the Dhamma, we open our mind to the way things are. In this way, we are no longer blindly reacting to sensory experience, but understanding it, and through that comprehension, beginning to let go of it. We begin to free ourselves from just being overwhelmed or blinded and deluded by the appearance of things. Now, to be aware and awake is not a matter of becoming that way, but of being that way. So we observe the way it is right now, rather than doing something now to become aware in the future. We observe the body as it is, sitting here. It all belongs to nature, doesn't it? The human body belongs to earth. It needs to be sustained by the things that come out of the earth. You cannot live on just air or try to import food from Mars and Venus. You have to eat the things that live and grow on this earth. When the body dies, it goes back to the earth. It rots and decays and becomes one with the earth again. Follows the laws of nature, of creation and destruction, of being born and then dying. Anything that is born doesn't stay permanently in one state. It grows up, gets old, and then dies. All things in nature, even the universe itself, have their spans of existence, birth and death, beginning and ending. All that we can perceive and can conceive of is change. It is impermanent, so it can never permanently satisfy you. In Dhamma practice, we also observe this unsatisfactoriness of sensory experience. Now just know in your own life that when you expect to be satisfied from sensory objects or experience, you can only be temporarily satisfied, gratified maybe, momentarily happy, and then it changes. This is because there is no point in sensory consciousness that has a permanent quality or essence. So the sense experience is always a changing one, and out of ignorance and not understanding, we tend to expect a lot from it. We tend to demand, hope, and create all kinds of things, only to feel terribly disappointed, despairing, sorrowful, and frightened. Those very expectations and hopes take us to despair, anguish, sorrow, and grief, lamentation, old age, sickness, and death. Now this is a way of examining sensory consciousness. The mind can think in abstractions. It can create all kinds of ideas and images. It can make things very refined or very coarse. There is a whole gamut of possibilities from very refined states of blissful happiness and ecstasies to very coarse painful miseries, from heaven to hell, using more picturesque terminology. There is no permanent hell and no permanent heaven, and in fact, no permanent state that can be perceived or conceived of. In our meditation, once we begin to realize the limitations, unsatisfactoriness, the changing nature of all sensory experience, we also begin to realize it is not me or mine. It is anatta, not self. So realizing this, we begin to free ourselves from identification with the sensory conditions. Now this is done through not aversion to them, but through understanding them as they are. It is the truth to be realized, not a belief. Anatta is not a Buddhist belief, but an actual realization. Now, if you don't spend any time in your life trying to investigate and understand it, you will probably live your whole life on the assumption that you are your body. Even though you might at some moment think, oh, I am not the body, you read some kind of inspired poetry or some new philosophical angle, you might think it is a good idea that one is in the body, but you haven't really realized that. Even though some people, intellectuals and so forth, will say, we are not the body is not self, that is easy to say, but to really know that is something else. Through this practice of meditation, through the investigation and understanding of the way things are, we begin to free ourselves from attachment. When we no longer expect or demand, then of course we don't feel the resulting despair and sorrow and grief when we don't get what we want. So this is the goal, nibbana, or the realization of non-grasping of any phenomena that have a beginning and an ending. When we let go of this insidious and habitual attachment to what is born and dies, we begin to realize the deathless. Some people just live their lives reacting to life because they have been conditioned to do so, like Pavlovian dogs. If you are not awakened to the way things are, then you really are merely a conditioned, intelligent creature rather than a conditioned, stupid dog. You may look down on Pavlov's dogs that salivate when the bell rings, but notice how we do very similar things. This is because with sensory experience, it is all conditioning. It is not a person. It is no soul or personal essence. These bodies, feelings, memories, and thoughts are perceptions conditioned into the mind through pain, through having been born as a human being, being born into the families we have and the class, race, nationality, dependent on whether we have a male or female body, attractive or unattractive, and so forth. All these are just conditions that are not ours, not me, not mine. These conditions, they follow the laws of nature, the natural laws. We cannot say, I don't want my body to get old. Well, we can say that, but no matter how insistent we are, the body still gets old. We cannot expect the body to never feel pain or get ill or always have perfect vision and hearing. We hope, don't we? I hope I will always be healthy. I will never become an invalid, and I will always have good eyesight, never become blind, have good ears so I will never be one of those old people that others have to yell at, and I will never get senile and always have control over my faculties till I die at 95, fully alert, bright, cheerful, and die just in my sleep without any pain. That is how we would all like it. Some of us might hold up for a long time and die in an idyllic way. Tomorrow, all our eyeballs might fall out. It is unlikely, but it could happen. However, the burden of life diminishes considerably when we reflect on the limitations of our life. Then we know what we can achieve, what we can learn from life. So much human misery comes out of expecting a lot and never quite being able to get everything one has hoped for. So in our meditation and insightful understanding of the way things are, we see that beauty, refinement, pleasure are impermanent conditions, as well as pain, misery, and ugliness. If you really understand that, then you can enjoy and endure whatever happens to you. Actually, much of the lesson in life is learning to endure what we don't like in ourselves and the world around us, being able to be patient and kindly, and not to make a scene over the imperfections in the sensory experience. We can adapt and endure and accept the changing characteristics of the sensory birth and death cycle by letting go and no longer attaching to it. When we free ourselves from identity with it, we experience our true nature, which is bright, clear knowing. But it is not a personal thing anymore. It is not me or mine. There is no attainment or attachment to it. We can only attach to that which is not ourself. The Buddha's teachings are merely helpful means, ways of looking at sensory experience that help us to understand it. They are not commandments. They are not religious dogmas that we have to accept or believe in. They are merely guides to point the way things are. So we are not using the Buddha's teachings to grasp them as an end in themselves, but only to remind ourselves to be awake, alert, and aware that all that arises passes away. This is a continuous, constant observation and reflection on the sensory world, because the sensory world has a powerfully strong influence. Having a body like this with the society we live in, pressures on all of us are fantastic. Everything moves so quickly. Television and the technology of the age, the cars, everything tends to move at a very fast pace. It's all very attractive, exciting, and interesting, and it all pulls your senses out. Just notice when you go to London and how all the advertisements pull your attention out to whiskey bottles and cigarettes. Your attention is pulled into things you can buy, always going towards rebirth into sensory experience. The materialistic society tries to arouse greed, so you will spend your money and yet never be content with what you have. There's always something better, something newer, something more delicious than what was the most delicious yesterday. It goes on and on and on, pulling you into objects of the senses like that. But when we come into the shrine room, we are not here to look at each other or to be attracted or pulled into any of the objects in the room, but to use them for reminding ourselves. We are reminded to either concentrate our minds on a peaceful object or open the mind, investigate, and reflect on the way things are. We have to experience this, each one for ourselves. No one's enlightenment is going to enlighten any of the rest of us. So this is a movement inwards, not looking outwards for somebody who is enlightened to make you enlightened. We give this opportunity for encouragement and guidance so that those of you who are interested in doing this can do so. Here you can, most of the time, be sure that nobody is going to snatch your purse. These days you can't count on anything, but there is less risk of it here than if you were sitting in Piccadilly Circus. Buddhist monasteries are refuges for this kind of opening of the mind. This is our opportunity as human beings. As a human being, we have a mind that can reflect and observe. You can observe whether you are happy or miserable. You can observe the anger or jealousy or confusion in your mind, When you are sitting and feeling really confused and upset, there is that in you which knows it. You might hate it and just blindly react to it, but if you are more patient, you can observe that this is a temporary changing condition of confusion or anger or greed. But an animal cannot do that. When it is angry, it is completely that, lost in it. Tell an angry cat to watch its anger. I've never been able to get anywhere with our cat. She cannot reflect on greed. But I can, and I am sure that the rest of you can. I see delicious food in front of me, and the movement in the mind is the same as our cat Doris's. But we can observe the animal attraction to things that smell good and look good. This is using wisdom by watching that impulse and understanding it. That which observes greed is not greed. Greed cannot observe itself, but that which is not greed can observe it. This is observing. This observing is what we call Buddha, or Buddha wisdom, awareness of the way things are. Instruction, watching the breath, anapanasati. Anapanasati, literally mindfulness, sati, of the in and out breath, is a way of concentrating your mind on your breath. So whether you are an expert at it, or whether you have given it up as a lost cause, there's always a time to watch the breath. This is an opportunity for developing samadhi, concentration, through mustering all your attention just on the sensation of breathing. So at this time, use your full commitment to that one point for the length of an inhalation and the length of an exhalation. You are not trying to do it for, say, 15 minutes because you would never succeed at that. If that were your designated span of time for one point of concentration, so use the span of an inhalation and exhalation. Now the success of this depends on your patience rather than on your willpower, because the mind does wander and we always have to patiently go back to the breath. When we are aware that the mind wanders off, we know what it is. It may be because we tend to just put a lot of energy at first and then not sustain it, making too much effort without sustaining power. So we are using the length of an inhalation and the length of an exhalation in order to limit the effort just to this length of time within which to sustain attention. Put forth effort at the beginning of the exhalation to sustain it through the exhalation to the end, and then again with the inhalation. Eventually it becomes even, and one is said to have samadhi when it seems effortless. At first it seems like a lot of effort, or that we can't do it, because we aren't used to doing this. Most minds have been trained to use associative thought. The mind has been trained by reading books and the like to go from one word to the next, to have thoughts and concepts based on logic and reason. However, anapanasati is a different kind of training, where the object that we're concentrating on is so simple that it's not at all interesting on the intellectual level. So it's not a matter of being interested in it, but of putting forth effort in using this natural function of the body as a point of concentration. The body breathes whether one is aware of it or not. It is not like pranayama, where we're developing power through the breath, but rather developing samadhi, concentration, and mindfulness through observing the breath, the normal breath, as it is right now. As with anything, this is something that we have to practice to be able to do. Nobody has any problem understanding the theory. It is in the continuous practice of it that people feel discouraged. But know that very discouragement that comes from not being able to get the result that you want, because that's a hindrance to the practice. Note that very feeling. Recognize it, and then let it go. Go back to the breath again. Be aware of that point where you get fed up or feel aversion or impatient with it. Recognize it, and then let it go and go back to the breath again. The mantra Buddho. If you've got a really active thinking mind, you might find the mantra Buddho helpful. Inhale on Bud and exhale on Do. So you're actually thinking this for each inhalation. This is a way of sustaining concentration. So for the next 15 minutes, do the anapanasati, putting all your attention, composing your mind with a mantric sound. Bud, Do. Learn to train the mind to that point of clarity and brightness rather than just sinking into passivity. It requires sustained effort. One inhalation, Bud, fully bright and clear in your mind, the thought itself raised and bright from the beginning to the end of the inhalation, and Do, on the exhalation. Let everything else go at this time. The occasion has arisen now to just do this. You can solve your problems and the world's problems afterwards. At this time, this much is all the occasion calls for. Bring the mantra up into consciousness. Make the mantra fully conscious instead of just a perfunctory passive thing that makes the mind dull. Energize the mind so that the inhalation on Bud is a bright inhalation, not just a perfunctory Bud sound that fades out because it never gets brightened or refreshed by your mind. You can visualize the spelling so that you're fully with that syllable for the length of an inhalation from the beginning to the end. Then do on the exhalation is performed the same way, so there's a continuity of effort rather than sporadic leaps and starts and failures. Just notice that if you have any obsessive thoughts that are coming up, some silly phrase that might be going through your mind. Now, if you just sink into a passive state, then obsessive thoughts will take over. But learning to understand how the mind works and how to use it skillfully, you're taking this particular thought, the concept, Buddho, the Buddha, the one who knows, and you're holding it in the mind as a thought. Not just an obsessive, habitual thought, but as a skillful use of thought, using it to sustain concentration for the length of one inhalation, exhalation, per 15 minutes. The practice is that, no matter how many times you fail and your mind starts wandering, you simply note that you're distracted, or that you're thinking about it, or you'd rather not bother with Buddha. I don't want to do that. I'd rather just sit here and relax and not have to put forth any effort. Don't feel like doing it. Or maybe you've got other things on your mind at this time, creeping in at the edges of consciousness. So you note that. Know what mood there is in your mind right now. Not to be critical or discouraged, but just calmly, coolly notice if you're calmed by it, or if you feel dull or sleepy, if you've been thinking all this time, or if you've been concentrating, just to know. The obstacle to concentration practice is aversion to failure and the incredible desire to succeed. Practice is not a matter of willpower, but of wisdom, of noting wisdom. With this practice, you can learn where your weaknesses are, where you tend to get lost. You witness the kind of character traits you've developed in your life so far, not to be critical of them, but just to know how to work with them and not be enslaved by them. This means a careful, wise reflection on the way things are. So rather than avoiding them at all costs, even the ugliest messes are observed and recognized. That's an enduring quality. Nibbana is often described as being cool. Sounds like hip talk, doesn't it? But there's a certain significance to that word. Coolness to what? It tends to be refreshing, not caught up in passions, but detached, alert, balanced. The word Buddha is a word that you can develop in your life as something to fill the mind with, rather than worries and all kinds of unskillful habits. Take the word, look at it, listen to it. Buddha. It means the one who knows, the Buddha, the awakened, that which is awake. You can visualize it in your mind. Listen to what your mind says, blah, 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 etc. It goes on like this, an endless kind of excrement of repressed fears and aversions. So now we are recognizing that. We're not using Buddha as a club to annihilate or repress things, but as a skillful means. We can use the finest tools for killing and harming others, can't we? You can take the most beautiful Buddha Rupa and bash somebody over the head with it if you want. That's not what we call Buddha Nusati, reflection on the Buddha, is it? But we might do that with the word Buddha as a way of suppressing those thoughts or feelings. That's an unskillful use of it. Remember, we're not here to annihilate, but to allow things to fade out. This is a gentle practice of patiently imposing Buddha over the thinking, not out of exasperation, but in a firm and deliberate way. The world needs to learn how to do this, doesn't it? The US and the Soviet Union, rather than taking machine guns and nuclear weapons and annihilating things to get in that way, are saying awful, nasty things to each other. Even in our lives, we do that, don't we? How many of you have said nasty things to somebody else recently? Wounding things, unkind, barbed criticisms, just because they annoy you, get in your way, or frighten you. So we practice just this with a little nasty, annoying things in our own mind, the things which are foolish and stupid. We use Buddha, not as a club, but as a skillful means of allowing it to go, to let it go. Now for the next 15 minutes, go back to your noses with the mantra Buddha. See how to use it and work with it. Now I'll just read a guided, it's called a guided meditation on loving kindness that I came across today in another early publishing from Amaravati in 1990, it says. There's some good talks in this, but it finishes with a guided meditation on loving kindness, metta. So it just says, consider this quietly on your own or get a friend to read it out slowly for you. So I'll do that. Stop for a few moments. Sit quietly with a straight back and gently close your eyes. Feeling the rhythm of the breath as it enters and leaves the body. Allow yourself to let go of past and future and come into the present moment, being with exactly what is, now. Bring your attention to the feeling of the body, accepting it just the way it is, with kindness. Allow yourself to accept all the sensations and feelings of the body completely. Breathe in deeply, with a sense of trust and well-being. Breathe out, letting go of tension, allowing any tightness to dissolve. Then, focus on the normal breathing. Just the feeling of breathing in, breathing out. Imagine yourself surrounded by light, perhaps a golden colored light if you like gold. Being with the sensation of the body breathing in, breathing out. Draw the light into the body as you breathe, maybe through the nostrils, the heart, or the head. Imagine light saturating the body through every pore. Think to yourself, may this being be well, and turn the calming effect of the meditation towards this being. May this being be calm. Suffuse your whole body with this calm and kindly attention. Then, let your awareness explore the body, moving around the head and face, gradually down the neck, the back and the chest, spreading right down the fingertips, then down the legs, to each toe, drawing on the good energy of the breath, expanding and embracing the heart. Focusing more on the out-breath, let go of the memories, the grudges, the grievances, let it all go. Begin again with each breath. Picture yourself in your mind's eye as you are now. Make peace with this view of yourself through forgiveness, compassion, gentleness. May this being be well. Suffuse this picture with gentle, warm light from the heart, then let it go. Next, picture your parents. Let them into your mind. Make peace with their image. May you be well. Bathing them with soft light, with gratitude. Observe thoughts arising, memories of yourself as a child, perhaps something painful or something you have never made peace with. Let it be in the mind, in the light. Then bring up an image of your daily situation, at home or wherever, with the people it involves, people you like or dislike, feel conflict with, love, fear, or worry for. May these beings be well. Put aside aversion, fear, worry, guilt. At this moment, allow yourself to be kind. Think of someone you know who is having a difficult time. Send these feelings of kindness towards them. Breathe in light. Breathe out, wishing them well. Gradually open up more and more, from the people you see every day to nobody special, and even those for whom you have hardly a memory. Recognize them as human beings with ambitions, hopes, problems, anxieties, joy, just like you. Give them some life in your perceptions. And, even more remote, acknowledge all the people you can conceive of in this world. This may be a faint feeling, but open up the heart to allow them into consciousness, to be felt. See what the mind does, how it reacts indignantly about some people, such as political figures. Let go of that indignation at this moment. Allow a sense of peace to envelop all beings, the liked, the disliked, familiar and unfamiliar. And then imagine the planet Earth as seen from space. Extend this sense of peace to the planet we live on, embracing it with your heart, surrounding it with light. Turning your attention to that sense of peace and light, allow it to expand outwards, without limit, letting the sense of me and the world dissolve in the stillness of the present. Then turn your attention back in towards itself, upon the feeling of knowing the screen of the mind, the place where images arise. Let it be quite empty or full, choiceless, being illuminated by the soft light from the heart, light from the breath, warm, gentle, beginning, letting go, patient kindness. Gently come back to the rhythm of the breath, and when you are ready, slowly open your eyes. That's all I have for tonight, but I suppose if there's any questions, you can open that up.